Greetings to all my followers of darkness, shadow scavengers, and villain aficionados. Aloha to all of you out there. Here I am finally doing another one of my own good old fashioned reviews of a movie that I never thought I'm gonna see in the movie theater, and yet finally I saw it, and here I am sharing my oral thoughts with you guys here. Ever since the release of Beauty and the Beast, the live action remake, I vowed I'm never gonna watch any other like Disney live action remakes at all, and I kept that word to Lilo and Stitch till this freaking movie. Yeah, I saw the trailers, I saw some of the behind the scenes videos and everything, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this movie a shot, and I did. So here I'm finally here to discuss about it and all. Oh my god! But first, before I start doing this review, I just want to say that when I went to see this movie, I kind of got a little bit emotional. I have to be honest with you guys. Like I got a little bit emotional because I do remember because when I sat down there and the movie was starting, it kind of reminded me, all the way back in 2002, I think, when the original movie came out. I was like very little, and watching the original with my parents and everything. So when I was watching the live action remakes, it just brought back all those memories. So yeah, it felt a bit nostalgic as well. Now, for anyone who seeing the original, you got guys, you will know, of course, about these live action remakes, what the overall plot is going to be all about. But for anyone who doesn't know, basically, Stitch is this experiment called Experiment 626, created by this mad scientist called Dr. Jumba Jukiba, and basically Jumba was accused of basically doing illegal genetic experiments, basically. So Jumbo was sent to prison. Stitch, basically, he was trying to be set on exile, but of course, he escaped his prison. He took the red one. Made a jump to the hyperspace, landed on Hawaii, and of course, the Grand Councilwoman, she sent Jumba and Pleakley, one of the most weirdest dynamic duos ever, to go down there, hunt down Stitch. But while he's down there, he met this lovable little girl called Lilo, and that's where one of the most iconic fictional dynamic duo relationship starts. Not to mention Stitch learning everything about Ohana, and that's basically the plot. I mean, to overall, I just want to say quickly about the plot. Since this is basically a live action remake of the classic, I would say like 85% of the movie, or should I say 85% of the plot is the same. Everything is the same with some like minor changes they did. But overall, the overall execution of the same plot, I would say for my positives, I thought it was executed pretty well when it comes to the overall plot. Now, besides that, the main thing I would have to talk about is, of course, Lilo. The actress who portrayed Lilo. I will apologize if I butcher her name, but Maya Kailoha, I think I pronounced her name correctly. If I didn't, I'm terribly sorry. Her performance as Lilo was absolutely, first and foremost, adorable. Second, she was amazing. When I was watching her on the screen, I was like, that's fucking Lilo. That's the Lilo I know. And she was amazing, from her weird elements, from her funny moments, from her serious moments, from her bond and relationship with Stitch, with her relationship with Nani, the overall point of view that she has on the world and Ohana and everything. Everything was spot on. Spot on. She was absolutely amazing. I guess again, they couldn't choose a better actress than her. Absolutely. She was absolutely wonderful, but primarily adorable. But with that, of course, you can't have Lilo without Stitch. Chris Sanders, the Chris Sanders, who voiced Stitch for more than a decade. Oh my god. The guy is 63 years old and he still got it. He still fucking got it, Stitch. He was great, from the talk, from Mika Mama Krista, or when he's when he's screaming and everything. He was absolutely amazing. I wouldn't even go as far as say again, everything from the original, it's literally every single line from his behavior, his personality, like I said, the screams and everything. Like everything he did in the original, he did a spot on here as well. And I have to even say, like, there were some additions to his performance as Stitch, especially like some like emotional moments in this live action remake, that even there proves that Chris Sanders is Stitch. It proves that the guy still got it, and he can go on and on as Stitch. Like, he was absolutely amazing. I have no complaints about him whatsoever. Absolutely, he was freaking amazing. Not to mention, also, I do have to mention the CGI on Stitch, spot on. Absolutely spot on. Everything from the facial expressions, from his being, fluffy and everything. Like, the CGI on him was spot on. Absolutely spot on. Now, one of the things, of course, that is also part of the original Lilo and Stitch is, of course, the relationship between Lilo and Nani. Now, in the original, the relationship between the two sisters, was actually explored, quite a bit in the original. But I have to tell you, their relationship in the live action remake is actually, I would say, it gives an upgrade to the overall relationship. Also, I do have to mention the actress who portrayed Nani, I think it was like Sydney Elizabeth Outdoing or something. Again, I do apologize if I butcher her last name. She was also great as Nani. I really, really liked her performance. Just like with Lilo, even her performance was spot on. It's like, again, seeing Nani on the big screen, come to life and everything. Like, she was also great. But the one thing that really intrigued me in this movie is their relationship, between the two sisters. And I have to tell you, like, unlike the original, they went with their relationship a little bit deeper than what they did in the animation, which I thought was actually a big upgrade comparing it to the original. So I really, really like that, that they kind of like explored more their relationship, because there was a lot of moments, between, besides when they were chasing each other after the social worker thing, or like, when Nani was singing Aloha and everything. Like, besides those moments, there were a lot of other moments which kind of makes their bond as two sisters even more stronger. Kind of basically showing more of what actually Ohana means and everything. Like, it was just simply wonderful. So I think that's one of the upgrades of from the original to live action as well. Which, of course, is obvious. When you're doing a live action remake, of course you're going to do some changes. And I really like they extended that part of the movie, or should I say, the part of the story. Now, one of the other things I do have to mention is, of course, Lilo and Stitch. Of course, it's not Lilo and Nani, it's Lilo and Stitch. And just like the original, their bond, their chemistry, their friendship, their ohana is spot on. From the first day they met, in the now I'm forgetting the dog shelter. That's what I was looking for. Since the first day they met in the dog shelter, all the way until the end, like, everything, just like in the original, like, their relationship was spot on from the beginning to the very end. And just like with Lilo and Nani's relationship, there were even some moments in this movie that also made their bonds more stronger than what it was, in the original. Now, of course, when it comes to the original, of course, like, their bond was explored not just simply in the first movie, but like there was like entire fucking franchise, like all the way from like the movies from Lilo and Stitch all the way to Leroy and Stitch, and of course Lilo and Stitch the series. Like, there was a lot of times where they could have explored their relationship, but as a movie, I would say they did a pretty well job exploring their relationship and the overall chemistry, and what basically made their bond unique, basically. So I felt like that was spot on. From, like I said, from funny moments to emotional moments, especially like all towards the end, to like their overall partnership in crime, if you have to put it that way. Like, everything about it was like adorable. Especially when they were doing mischief. Oh my god, like there were some moments in this movie that when they were doing the mischief, I was like, yeah, those two were really meant for each other. Oh my god, absolutely adorable. Absolutely adorable. So that was another thing that really was spot on when it comes to like the overall live action remake. Now, with that being said, I do have to talk about Jumba and Plickly. Okay, so when it comes to their overall crazy relationship, from like ever since they were put together to hunt down Stitch and everything, like Jump and Plickly, I have to say, so far when it comes to their characters, they were done pretty good. Okay, they were done pretty well. But one of the things that was really kind of curious is how they're going to handle their storyline when they went to Earth. And I do have to say, because like some, because I at first I thought like okay, they're gonna do them completely CGI, and everything. But after seeing the trailer and what I've seen in the movie, from like basically having human disguise and everything for the hologram disguise, or whatever it was, it actually worked. It actually worked. It actually made more sense, because if you remember from the original anime movie, basically every single time they were there, like they were basically doing having different disguises, from like completely being wearing different clothes and wigs, Jumba wearing like hats and mustaches and glasses and everything, like but from a mile away you can see there were aliens. But the way how they did it here, with like it made way more sense, not just simply like not making them like fully on CGI and everything, but also at the same time making them blend with humans and everything. Like it made way more sense. So I really like the change they did. Like basically for the majority part of the movie, making them humans and everything. Which was really really perfect. And also gives the actors a way more bigger chance to give a really really actually a pretty well performance, which they did. I mean, I do have to mention that Billy Magnuson, who basically portrayed the human version and voiced Pleakley, I thought actually he did a pretty good job. I mean, again, just like Lilo and Stitch, he actually, his overall character brought to life, in live action and everything. I thought like, they did a pretty decent job, playing Pleakley and everything. I mean, there were some changes they did with his character, but overall, no complaints. I really, really liked his overall character all the way from the beginning to the very end. Like I said, there were some changes, but overall, 95% of it, he was still the same Pleakley as we all knew and loved. So yeah, overall, no complaints about his performance. Now I do have to go to Dr. Jumba Jukiba. Okay, and the guy from Hangover portraying him, Zach. I'm just gonna just say Zach, because like every single time when I pronounce his last name, I always butcher it. But Zach from Hangover, who portrayed Jumba Jukiba, I know that a lot of people had complaints with his portrayal, because they were like, nope, that's not Jumba. Like the Jumba we know, the one voiced by, the rest of his soul, David Ogden Stiers. All the way since from the beginning to the very end of the franchise. He for a lot of people, including myself, he was Jumba. But every time when they cast another actor to voice these iconic characters, I always kind of give them a chance to prove themselves. And overall, he was a solid Jumba. I mean, when you hear Jumba, you hear Zach. You don't hear Jumba. Which So overall, when it comes to like performance-wise, when it comes to like nailing the character, like his behavior, his personality, and who he is and everything, I thought it was fine. I thought like he actually did just like Pleakley. I thought like he had a decent performance as Jumba. However, I didn't like his voice. Now, does that mean it's the weakest link of the movie? No, but I still think that his voice, he could have added a little bit more. Because like, because he should have had an accent. Because like when David Ogden Stiers voiced him, from the first movie all the way to the end, he basically when every time he talked like this, little girl, I prefer to be called evil genius. He had an accent. And I've seen an interview that Zach said, like, oh, he was afraid to do accents and everything, especially nowadays and all that. And I'm like, dude, you're playing an alien. You can do an accent, freely, no problem. I mean, like, just look at fucking Star Wars. Like for example, Togratas or Twi'leks. Like, they have their own accents. Because they're aliens. It's part of their culture. It's part of their race and everything. So he could have done the same thing with Jumba. But okay, that's how he went with it. That's how they went with it. So. Okay, I was like, okay, fine, I accept it. But still, I think like his voice, they could have done something with his voice, But overall, like his overall performance, it was fine. It was fine. Like, but out of all the, like, I would say relationships when it comes to, like, chemistries and duos and everything, I would say like Jumbo and Plickly, their relationship is like the weakest of them all, in the movie. But overall, separately and everything, I felt like Zach's performance as Jumba and Billy's performance as Plickly, I felt like he was pretty decent. But I have to say, they are, as characters, I will admit they are a bit, the weakest links of the movie. Now, one of the other things I do have to mention is Cobra Bubbles. Now, one of the things, of course, if anyone did watch the original, Cobra Bubbles was a former CIA agent who was a special classification social worker. But in this version, he's a CIA agent, and he works way more better. Because I always thought it was odd for someone like Cobra Bubbles being a social worker and everything, especially the way how he looks and dressed and everything. So I was kind of happy that they kept him as a CIA agent instead of, like, being a social worker and everything. Even though in the movie he did play a social worker, but undercover, not like actually being one. So I really appreciated that kind of change here, because for a character like Cobra Bubbles, he actually makes more sense, to be more of a CIA agent than a social worker, And I do have to say that Courtney B. Vance, who played Cobra Bubbles, I thought he did a decent job playing Cobra Bubbles. I thought I mean, sure, like a lot of people, they would have wanted the original one to come back and play him, But overall, with the choice that they made and everything, he was actually pretty decent as Cobra Bubbles. I really liked him, And his overall involvement in the movie was also changed a little bit. But at the core, it kind of remained the same. But still, I felt like his role was executed pretty decently. Just like I would say, it was handled pretty decently, just like it was, with John Van Pleakley, basically. So yeah, his role was executed decently. Now, one of the other things I do have to talk about is Tia Carrere, the original voice of Nani. Playing a part in Lilo and Stitch. I thought that was adorable. And also a great addition to this live action remake. And also, she made a way more believable social worker than Cobra Bubbles, And I love, like, again, I love her role in this movie, like, her relationship with Lilo, especially, with Nani, and the overall kind of like, connection. That she had, with them and everything, also trying to help them at the same time. Like, I really, really liked what they did with her character. I really did. So I felt like, kind of, even though, for people who know the original, of course, they will know who she is, and everything. But I felt like, she was a nice addition to this movie. And her overall performance was fine, absolutely fine. She wasn't overused. She wasn't just thrown there, without a purpose and everything. No, she had a purpose, like all the other characters in the movie. So I was completely fine with her. And again, very, very touching that she played a part in this movie. Absolutely. Now besides her, I will also mention that the neighbors of Nani and her boyfriend also, I feel like they were also pretty good as well as characters. Like I thought that I really, really liked what they did with them. Although the boyfriend of Nani, he was kind of like the same as he was in the anime movie, although in the live action one he was a lot more weird than what he was in the original. But with the type of character he was and everything, it fits perfectly. And I thought the actress who portrayed the elderly neighbor of Lilo and Nani, and her kind of like well, in this one he's not actually her boyfriend, but like I thought like overall his performance was also pretty good. When it comes to like other like side characters. Now, one of the other things that I was kind of worried also with Lilo and Stitch was the soundtrack. And I have to tell you, the soundtrack, they didn't disappoint. I'm telling you, man, like there was a lot of times when I felt emotional. I even shed a few tears, especially hearing again a new version of Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride. Oh my god, it brought me back in time when I was watching the original. And also like the hearing the singing voice, and the kids behind in the background and everything. Oh my god, it brought so many memories. Also the introduction, just like in the original, like when Jumbo was wondering like where Lilo where did Stitch landed. That's the like the that song. I mean, it's not the it's not the original, but still like it's a revised version of it. But like overall, it still played the homage to the original one. But in the same time, it still felt new. And man, like oh my god, it was the nostalgia wave just simply rocked me so hard. Literally. Oh my god. Yeah, and also it was really great that the original singer, was brought back for the live action remakes. Not to mention also uh, the same choir, just like different generation, of course, but like that was also great, a really great addition, to the soundtrack, to the crew of Lilo and Stitch, like the live action remake. So overall, the soundtrack was amazing, amazing, like nostalgia heavy but still amazing, like like basically trying, not simply trying to bring like a new fresh air to the original songs, but also at the same time not to make feel them like they were like spot on copies and everything, but also the soundtrack overall, it was handled really really well. Now, one of the other things, of course, a lot of people wondering is, as I like to put it here, original versus remake, like the overall differences. Like I said, 85% of the movie, the like the overall plot was the same. The overall core of the plot was the same, and there was a lot of different scenes that were taken directly from the animated version to the live action version. And even some of them even brought me to tears. Like from like certain moments, certain dialogues, especially Stitch when he was when he was under arrest by the Grand Councilwoman at the end, when he was like, this is my family. I found it all on my own. It's small, broken, but still good. Yeah, still good. Like when Chris Sanders said those lines, I literally would start crying because again, the nostalgia wave just simply swallowed me like entirely. Like oh my god, like there was a lot of different things. But like I said, with live action remakes, you know of course there's going to be some changes, like I said, the change in the social worker thing, like the change of like the main villain role, because like like for example in the original, with Jumbo and Plickly, the main, also one of the main bad guys was also Captain Gento, which by the way, spoiler alert, Captain Gento is not in this one, you know and in a way I'm kind of glad he isn't. I'm really kind of glad they kept Jumbo Jukiba as the main villain all the way till the end. It kind of, for me personally, it kind of made sense more than just simply bringing Captain Gento. So if the live action remake is successful, maybe in Lilo and Stitch 2, they could bring Captain Gento that way. I mean, I don't know. Anything is possible. But overall, I know there was a lot of people complaining that Captain Gento wasn't in it, but overall, I think like they did a pretty good decision of not bringing him in, because I think like then the movie will feel like overstuffed. I mean, in the anime movie, the way how they execute his role and everything, I felt like it kind of fitted a little bit, But in live action remake, like I said, there were things that worked in animation, but in live action wouldn't. So I think like I'm really glad they kept Jumbo Jukiba as the main villain and not like going with Gento and everything. But I will say this: if they bring Captain Gento in the sequel, Kevin Michael Richardson, he needs to return to voice Gento again, because he is Gento. But overall, like I said, there were some changes, like from the extended the overall extended how can I put this, like the way how they extended on the relationship between Lilo and Nani, or Lilo and Stitch. Like I said, the Copper Bubbles, like they switched his role with with Tia Carreri's like character. Also the neighbors of Nani. And kind of like expanding on like many different characters to give them more layers and everything. Like of course, like I said, in every single live action remake, there are always going to be differences. But I think like when it comes to the remake, I think like some of the changes they did, I thought they were actually pretty well. So like is the remake better than the original? I will say this: it's not, but it's very very close. Absolutely, very very close. So overall, I know there's gonna be people debating like which is better, but I think like both deserve a seat on the table. But again, that's just my opinion. Also, Easter eggs, and references. Oh my God, there isn't many, but trust me, when they're there, oh my god, a lot of the Lilo and Stitch fans, including myself, they will freak out, especially especially a reference that not only go that connects Lilo and Stitch 2, but also Lilo and Stitch the series as well. And I thought that was a nice touch. Again, I don't want to go. I know there's been 3 weeks already, but I don't want to like go into details what it was, because I want to give you guys a chance to, for anyone who hasn't watched the originals, to watch this one for the first time, to kind of experience and everything. I mean, the people who didn't watch the original, I think they're gonna be confused, like what the hell, what that reference was. But anyone who watched it, the original, and of course all the other parts of the franchise, they will know what that means. But I thought that so overall the reference, I thought it was a nice touch, very very nice touch, And if this is successful, I cannot wait to see other cousins brought into live action as well. Oh my god, because there was a lot of different experiment references. Yeah, there I said it. I thought I wouldn't, but still I will say it. Oh my god, I even cannot believe they referenced 627, the evil experiment. I cannot believe that they referenced him, as well. I mean, for what I've seen, they referenced. I think, from that little reference, because I think that was even the only one they had. But I have to say, if I remember correctly, I've seen Angel, I've seen Spark, like Sparky, the electric experiment. I've seen the 6 to 7 version. I don't know if I have to watch that scene again, but I don't think I've seen Leroy. The evil version of Stitch, basically. But again, as a reference, an Easter egg, I really like they included that part of the Lilo and Stitch franchise as well. So with that, I'm gonna give basically my overall final thoughts, which of course is about this movie, which of course is overall as a live action remake. I liked it. I really really did. I like the overall remake, like everything about it, like I said, from the overall performances to the character treatment, except Jamba. From like I said, from all the performances, the CGI, the soundtrack, the story, even though, like I said, 85% of the time it was like the same as the original. But I felt like the overall movie was executed pretty well. There's a lot, for anyone who hasn't seen Lilo and Stitch, the original version, I think like this movie is gonna make them see the original, but also in the same time, enjoying it for the first time as well. So overall, out of all the Disney remakes, I would say this is definitely one of the best ones they did in ever since Jungle Book. Yeah, I think this is like one of the best ones they did, and it deserves a seat at the table on one of the best live action remakes. 100% for sure. So yeah, because like from the performances, from the plot to the soundtrack to the characters, except Jamba, from the actors and everything, I felt like this movie was spot on. Also, I will say this. I just want to go back to the original versus remake thing. I might be crazy, but I think like when Jumbo was invading the house, I think like the director actually took the inspiration not from the actual original scene. I mean, from the one that was released, but I think like he took a lot of imagination from the deleted scene. The first original scene from the early screen. When Jumbo invaded the house and kind of was a little bit more crazier than what it was in the final cut and everything, because there was a lot of different references from that deleted scene that I've seen when I was watching the live action one. So again, maybe just me, but if he took inspiration from that original one, that's Stitch, a solid 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. It's a solid rating for a live action Disney remake. I think, like, again, Lilo and Stitch, I thought they did a really splendid job, with this movie and everything. So, so as a moviegoer, as a Lilo and Stitch fan, I think I was completely satisfied in the end. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. And with that being said, we have come to an end to another one of my movie reviews. So as always, you guys know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe, give me your personal thoughts and ideas. If you've seen the Lilo and Stitch live action remakes, do you like, if you've seen the original, do you think it was satisfying for you? What did you thought of like the Lilo's actress performance? What did you thought of Stitch? What did you thought of Nani's performance? What did you thought of all the other characters, Jumbo and Pleakley? Everything about Lilo and Stitch, the live action remake, just put it in the comment section down below. And as always, see you guys next time. Stay tuned for more. Lord of Shadows signing off. Or as I like to say, later, fuckers.